Right, cool, Gareth. Thank you very much for talking with me tonight. It's been quite insightful. We've just had a brief discussion beforehand about everything and what we're going to talk about tonight on the call. Obviously, when I started the business and the company, there was a post about the more traditional route into analysis, and it kind of got all blown up. Whether it was whoever it was, it kind of got out a bit out
Yeah,
of hand, and I really wanted to obviously discuss with you and almost try and understand. I think where I was coming from, obviously that's the route that I come from, and a lot of analysts that I brought through had gone down that route.
yeah,
And I think this discussion now is basically for me to try and understand your route, what your story is, what your background is, and how you got into it. And I'm sure there's many, many more analysts like yourself that maybe haven't gone to uni and want to try and create that pathway for them. And I didn't want to just, really target my audience to discussions about, that's the way to do it, because obviously it's
yeah,
not. There's lots of different ways, and
yeah,
I wanted to just have a brief conversation with you, just about everything really. Your route. We'll talk about your route into analysis. We'll talk about your current role and how you came about getting it. We'll talk about sort of what advice you'd give to anyone who maybe hasn't gone to uni and is working as an analyst now, and we'll discuss other things, but we'll try and make it flow, and we'll take it from there. So if you want to introduce yourself and yeah, we'll go from there.
yeah. So I'm Gareth Cooper, and I'm currently the data analyst at Crawley Town in League Two. My role consists of like quite a variation of things really. Pre-season, sort of some data analysis on some recruitment players to see what's out there, what we can possibly get coming in. It's changed slightly different from last season, as the new gaffer's sort of very well connected, so has his own sort of brief mind on players that he can then sort of thinking about bringing into the club. So I've done a little bit of stuff this pre-season, but not as much as what I would have done last season, where we sort of documented sort of at least 15 to 20 players with full data analysis documents on each of them,
Yeah,
variety of positions. We ended up signing 3 of them,
yeah,
which was good from my point of view,
yeah.
as
Good,
a data
good.
analyst, to show that they use the work. But I started off doing opposition analysis in a Spartan league in Bedfordshire, near where I live. So I did opposition work for them.
Yeah,
Luckily, they sort of forked out for a camera and everything, and I filmed all their games for them, and then did opposition analysis and a bit of that. And then whilst I was doing that, I sort of started to send work out, opposition reports, trying to get them. I think I sent one to yourself, I think at some
yeah,
point,
yeah,
probably to evaluate.
yeah.
I must have sent it to over 150 clubs, like worldwide, loads of clubs. Got a couple of nice ones. Got a nice one back from Leipzig in Germany, which was quite nice, from the guy in Germany.
Nice.
And it sort of piqued that interest a little bit more, thinking, well, I've got something here. How can I sort of? And that's how I started. And really, then I sort of took an interest in data, that sort of a lot of numbers, and I just got into that more and more, and sort of then fell away from a traditional opposition analysis, as in not going into live scouting and things like that. I sort of started to do the data work, and then as I moved on from Biggleswade, I managed to get sort of like a part-time role at Stevenage, what was Stevenage Borough
Yeah,
then, is now Stevenage FC now, doing performance analysis there for the academy, filming sort of all the everything from under 21 games all the way down to under 9 sort of thing. So on Saturdays and Sundays, which was really good, because that was my first taste of being in a professional environment, and it was very different to what sort of I expected it to be. It's more sort of more like a club, as
yeah,
in sort of a load of blokes, and it is quite a bit like that, and it was quite enjoyable, but it just got a bit too much. And again, we weren't being paid for that sort of thing, so it was difficult,
yeah,
to keep within your own personal life as well as having a full-time job. So I kept sending stuff out, and eventually set up my website and got a little bit of work off of that. And then luckily, my gaffer at Crawley, who was at the time was Gabriel Cioffi,
yeah,
and I knew Edu as well, Edu Rubio from MK Dons. So it all fell into place really nicely. And Gab liked what I did. He was a young manager, so he was a little bit more into it maybe. a little bit more accepting of all the data work that we were doing, and it went from there, and it was really successful, to be fair. I mean, all right, I know he ended up leaving the role, but for periods of time, it went sort of really well. And that's where I am now, really. Sort of, the gaffer's a little bit more, he's a bit different from the older one, a bit more old school, maybe it's fair to say. But he's still interested in what we're doing, and it's helping. So hopefully next season we'll have a better season.
Yeah, perfect. And what's your sort of original background, Gareth? Obviously, is this something that you've always done? Have you worked previous jobs before? Have you been to university?
No. It coincided with I was working as a cleaning supervisor.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, my wife she had a brain hemorrhage in 2015.
Okay.
So therefore, I then became we had a period of time where I had to stop work to make sure she was all right. She lost quite a lot of her eyesight.
Right.
So then I stopped work, and I needed then something to fill my time. And it wasn't a hobby. It became as a hobby, but then it became more of look, I can get somewhere with this. I've got the time now to really push to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened, really. You've got to remember, I'm 40. There was no performance analysis degrees about when I could have gone to university. There was no performance analysis. The closest you were getting was leisure and tourism, probably. So there was nothing like that. It's only in recent years, I think, really, that you've had that you've been able to do, performance analysis degrees and things like that.
And do you know what? That's a really interesting point, because obviously, like you say, it's very new. It's very common now for universities to offer performance analysis as part of their degree, and some degrees are going specifically just on analysis now.
Yeah.
I hear exactly what you're saying. You didn't have that option beforehand.
No, and the trouble is now is, if my opinion is that, and this is going back to the discussion of the original Twitter post, I guess, is that for a lot of us who are coming, for someone like me, I like to consider myself, I've got quite a vast football knowledge.
Yeah.
However, it's too late now for me to go to university, to do a degree, to then look for a full-time role. And you look for a lot of these full-time roles that are online for performance analysis, the essential requirement is sometimes a master's, or is sometimes a degree in performance analysis. Now, some of those younger lads who are doing that will not have the football experience that someone like me would have. I haven't got a degree, so it's a kind of, somebody's got to meet in the middle somewhere, maybe,
Yeah.
I just find that quite, and that to me is, and I'm not just saying that, there'll be some people, younger lads, who can't afford to go to university, but yet love football, and think that they could do something in the game. Yeah. But so everyone's caught in the middle.
Yeah. So do you think the industry is almost narrowing down the field to just uni students now, and it's becoming, because if you're, say for example, you're a scout, like I say, you could not have a degree, you could be of an older generation, and it's kind of accepted, and you go to games and you scout and you do your because you're older and you've got that knowledge and you've been watching the football a long time, don't necessarily have to have the degree. But what you're saying now in regards to the analysis side, it's almost narrowing down just specific people that only have degrees, and it's becoming harder and harder now to get in without one.
I think it is, and the thing is, for me, I was lucky in that I started doing opposition reports. I did an IPSO course, up at Curzon Ashton, and it really sparked my interest. And and I thought to myself, because that was the start of it. I thought, I've got to do something. I love football. I know a lot about football. I like to think, what can I do? Yeah. So I did the scouting course, and like I say, it piqued my interest. So I've got that background already of doing how to compile an opposition report. Yeah. But then I taught myself how to use, I taught myself how to use Python. I taught myself how to use Excel, all in this spare time. But I had the time to do it, but then does what I know, as in I know how to compile opposition reports. I know how to use a computer to a quite a high standard. Yeah. Does that equate to the same thing as someone who's 20-something years of age and has a master's in performance analysis? Yeah. Where do we meet in the middle there? How close am I to him? How close is he to me? Because he might not have some of the skills that I've got, but yet I've not been taught to be a performance analysis, but yet I've done the role.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting debate, and you're talking there about the common denominator is experience. At the end of the day, you know, you've got a very high level experience, but not necessarily have it on paper. Whereas a lot of students coming through have it on
That's
paper,
right.
haven't got the experience. So it is literally all about experience and getting in at a club and really opening discussion and sending your work out exactly like what you did. You know, you sent your work
Yeah,
out
I mean,
to the
yeah.
club. And,
I mean, that's what I get a lot of messages on Twitter, you know, sort of DMs, people saying, younger lads especially, a lot of them saying, you know, what did you do? Is it hard to get into a club? What's
yeah,
the pay like?
yeah,
And you're thinking, look, you know, a lot of people, you know, the regulars on us on Twitter who were sort of in the group, you know, we know that you've got to do that hard graft. We know that.
yeah,
But my concern is, especially is, if you're, let's just hypothetically say you're 21, you've got your degree in performance analysis,
yeah,
and you're an intern then at that club, at a club,
yeah,
and they offer you a full-time role. You know, are you going to be as good at that role as what the skills that I've got would?
yeah, yeah,
And where do employers? I'd love to know. You know, how some employers look at it. My route was not traditional by any standards. But
yeah,
what is the
yeah,
traditional
yeah,
way?
yeah.
I don't know anymore.
No, it's interesting. Certainly, I mean, obviously we've touched base on there, and you can open it up in loads of different directions. You know, is an internship any good? And you know, obviously it gives you the experience, gives you in the door. You know, there's loads of different debates in our clubs now. You know, exploiting like younger students now because
Well, it's the pay. I think
relabelling.
that's yeah, it's the money. I think a lot of it's the money. I've been at clubs where, pardon me, been at clubs for visits and stuff like that, and I then get in contact with these interns. Excuse me, and they're not being paid. Not all of them. I'm not speaking for every club, but some
Yeah,
2 or 3 that I've experienced, they're not being paid, and they're sitting there. I've been in these rooms. They're sitting there. It's match day, and I'm talking on a match day,
yeah,
and I'm talking professional football, and they're sitting there. They've got their feet up at the table. You know, they're just sitting there. They're relaxing. Like one of them, like they're sitting, and it's like, are you enjoying what you are doing
yeah,
enough? You know, is it just a job? I fear for criticising people because I don't like to do that, but I've seen it with my own eyes.
yeah. Yeah,
You
and
know?
obviously, like a lot of your audience is on Twitter now. That's obviously where you have a lot of followers, and you obviously you put a lot of your work out there via Twitter. Would you say now that Twitter is almost overtaking a lot of the data side and how you express your work? And
Possibly. I mean, it depends. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I've got my website, but the only reason I did that website was because I had so much sort of stuff put on, and it needs updating terribly because you progress so much on there. But then the Crawley job came and it takes over.
yeah,
So it's about progression. But yeah, I guess Twitter is a big thing. I mean, if it wasn't for Twitter, I don't think I'd be where I am because some of the help that some of the chaps on there have given me, data viz wise especially, is immense. You know,
yeah,
it's helped me no end. You know, like people did with my opposition reports. You know, this is not good. Add this in. Add that in. Twitter's the same. You know, and even with, as you know, like Python especially, can be really complicated at times. And you know, I'm no spring chicken, and so it takes a little while to get into these things. But I think Twitter, especially the data viz side of things, and for analysis and things like that, is the feedback that you get and the help you get is second to none. In my opinion, on Twitter is second to none. Some of the help that I've received, and I'm talking for people who are high end Premier League clubs, data scientist jobs, you know,
yeah,
all around the world, and they're helping someone who's sitting in his living room
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
get a pressure map right or something like that, you know. That makes all that difference to someone, that help, and that's what I try and do to help other people if I can, you know.
Yeah, no, good. And obviously, you said there you were learning how to do Python and stuff
Yeah,
like that. Is that obviously very complicated software? I've touched on a little bit myself
yeah.
during this furlough. And
I
what?
mean, it's the difference between data scientists. I mean, I'd never class myself as a data scientist. You can give me some, you know, give me Y Scout, and we get like some Opta data at Crawley now.
Yeah,
And I've had to learn, and a lot of that through other people, how to use and do that and implement that software. Visual aids are massive. I would always advocate, especially if you're doing opposition reports and things like that. managers don't particularly like to read lots of words. If you can put it all into visual formats, and a lot of visual formats, and just a brief description of how things work, it goes massively.
Yeah.
It goes massively. And most of the managers that I've worked under, or, you know, the few that I've worked under, have all preferred that, you know, make it shorter, mate.
Yeah.
You know, because that's not what they, you know, and you think, oh, it's a few too many words. So, but yeah, like you say, the Python thing is difficult, but I find it easier to learn than R, which a lot of what other people use. But equally, it's I guess it's both the same sort of thing. It's what you tend to prefer. I tried R, I didn't get on with it. I tried Python, I thought this is for me. This is a lot better.
Yeah.
And so you get to understand certain things, but again, only through the help of other people. If I sat here on my own, I wouldn't be able to get my head around it, I don't think.
Yeah, and it's obviously, it's very interesting that you brought up the visuals of how your work looks, and obviously you obviously touched on there, very data heavy in what you're doing, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're more of a performance analyst or a data analyst or a sports scientist. At the end of the day, the same principles apply, and that is how you visually make the work look.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, at Crawley, we also work in the past. I have worked with sort of GPS data.
Yeah.
So again, sprinting, sort of, you know, all that sort of thing. And I'm thinking, how much, you know, can you do something with this? And it's like, I've never worked. Yeah, I did at Stevenage for a while, work with some GPS data, but we could code it, so it was all fine. Here, he's just giving me a spreadsheet of GPS data. Well, can you make this? So simple bar charts and stuff like that, and it's just such a simple thing.
Yeah.
But yet you're learning as you go along. But like I say, the help from other people, I think, in every sense, is invaluable. And I think also now, a sports scientist and a data analyst, a performance analyst, I think there's a multitude of skills there. Where, you know, back in the day, a performance analyst was probably a video camera coding games.
Yeah.
You probably weren't doing a great deal else. I don't, you know, in my experience, Stephen, we weren't. It was just a lot of it was just filming. You were then coding it with sports code, huddle, etc.
Yeah, and again, sort of relating it back to the route, is you necessarily don't pick up all them skills at university. You've picked them all up yourself. You've gone and learned. You've spoken to other people. I assume you've maybe used YouTube, but a lot of the time. And like I say, you don't, as per your argument was that you don't necessarily have to go and get a degree to go and learn these skills. You can go and learn yourself. And
I mean, the average Joe can use Y-Scout, can use Instat. You know, it's a simple, even to create a simple Excel bar chart or something like that. Grab some numbers, some shot data or something from players. You know, 10 players in Spain or, you know, La Liga. Plot the shots, plot a bar graph, and you start. And that's how I started off from there. And I'm thinking, well, how can I make this look better?
Yeah.
And then everything progresses and progresses from there. And you learn. And Twitter, like you say, it opened up my eyes to some of the things that some people can do with data on there. And I'm thinking, I've got this data.
Yeah.
Why can't I do that?
Yeah.
Well, I could try and learn to do that. And that's what I tried to do, I think, you know.
Nice. And obviously that kind of leads on to the next question. In what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to take, obviously, the less traditional route in going to university, if someone was in the same position as you?
I think it's just a case of, you know, these days we can get free data from anywhere. You know, you've got Who Scored, you know, you've got a lot of sort of different sorts of sites like that. Maybe grab some stuff off of there. Just using it, just learn how to create a simple Excel pie chart, a bar chart, just to show something. Put a header on it, put your tag at the bottom of it, your Twitter handle, and post it, and just say, look, this is my first time. You know, can you give me some feedback? People will not ridicule you for what you're doing. They won't, because it's the analytics community and everyone sort of gets involved with different things. And you've just got the feedback, like I say, again, I know I keep saying it, but the feedback you get is worth more than a lot of other things that you're going to get. You know, people say, well, you know, have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing that? I know. You know, and that's how it sort of progresses. But I started off doing opposition reports. So, you know, that's what I sort of tell everyone. Yeah. Not everyone wants to be a data scientist or a data analyst. Not everyone sort of that sort of frightens some people. Maybe a data analyst, oh, they're going to throw a load of numbers at me, and I've got to produce this, I've got to produce that. But if you get the right people at the right club, they'll let you be creative. I'm lucky at Crawley where I can be creative. You know, I can just do my own thing. I send it to them. Is this good enough? Yeah, that's fine. If it's not, can you do something else? Could you do this? You know, or
yeah. And it's interesting for me. Obviously, I've been in the industry, you know, a long time, not too long, 8 years or so, and there was still a lot of things that I was learning from guys off Twitter, especially on the data visualization. That's not a massive strength of mine. I mean, visualizing information I'm very good at, and getting that message across. But in regards to data and the real hard Python, our stuff, that just goes way beyond me. And I really tried to learn online, and I was really, researching, and it was through Twitter, and it was through guys like yourself that, again, haven't gone down that traditional route of university to go and learn how to use the data and how effective it can be in certain roles within the professional game. And I'm trying to take that into my roles. And
I always think I always say, don't be frightened to ask the question. You'll get some people, you can ask people on Twitter. There's at least three people that come to my mind that I pester about at all times of the night, all in the daytime, or even if they're in another country. So I message them in the afternoon. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And the following morning I wake up and I've got the messages, and sometimes we're over a period of course of weeks getting somewhere slowly but surely. But they might say I'll get on their nerves. But if you don't ask the question, you're never going to know. If you don't know something, you could spend a lot of time. I spent a lot of time on Slack Overflow, Googling questions and things like that. And I found out a lot that way. I'm not just saying I solely rely on other people, but other people's knowledge is better than what mine is a lot of the time. So don't be frightened to ask the question.
Yeah, nice. Do you think there'll be more people taking this route into football? Do you think that you'll find more and more people coming from the social media world and launching into the game?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there's some top people on Twitter that are not attached to clubs. There's people in India that are not attached to clubs that I know of that are really good data. I'm talking data scientists, not data analysts, that can produce far greater work than I can produce, but yet are not attached to clubs. But then again, maybe they don't want to be.
Yeah.
Maybe they're in other jobs that are, either better paid, or they just do it as a hobby.
Yeah.
But there are other people especially on Twitter and stuff like that don't necessarily maybe want to go into it. I don't know. I mean, I post my stuff. I've got an Instagram one, I've got a LinkedIn one, and I post it both on there as well. But it's not just for me, it's for other people to see. Especially on LinkedIn, you get a lot of people, recruiters on there and stuff like people. Obviously, that's what it's for, people looking for jobs. But you also get youngsters on there, and you look at youngsters, I sound really old, don't I? But youngsters on there that are looking, how did you get into football and stuff like that? And, could you show me your code? How did you do a bit of this and that? And I think, like you say, on Twitter, especially now, you get so many fan accounts, especially like data fan accounts.
Yeah.
United data, Arsenal data, they're everywhere, and so all it takes is for some of these people to get picked up. I mean, I do little bits for Premier League clubs that I've got off my website, that are consistently coming to me.
Yeah.
Because they've seen what I'm doing every month. Sort of, can you just do this one? It's only one or two graphics every now and then.
Yeah.
But one of them's consistent every month.
Yeah.
It's just something that they like what I do in that style. They haven't replicated it, so they've just, can you do this?
Yeah, just
great.
Yeah. Do you think there's a certain stigma attached with these fan accounts and with these people on Twitter doing fantastic data that, because they're not working in the game or they've got no experience, no football experience or anything like that? Do you think there's a certain stigma attached to almost not?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. Yeah, sorry. I mean, possibly. I mean, if I was, a sporting director or a head of recruitment or data, working as a head of a data team in football, would I recruit one of these people? Possibly not. But it depends, doesn't it? How consistent are you over time? What sort of work are you producing? How long have you been producing work? Are you copying other people's work? Are you not giving them credit for that work? Which is a bugbear of us data analysts on Twitter, that people are copying some of our work, and you've seen it posted elsewhere. And even though they're not following you, you can see it because somebody else has liked it that you're following. So all of a sudden, you can see other. So it depends, doesn't it? I mean, there's a lot of people at clubs that are far cleverer than some of us on Twitter. So it's a difficult thing.
Yeah, and obviously, sort of finally, now we're talking, obviously relating it back to the PDF and the traditional route that was uploaded. Obviously, I spoke about on there, like, sort of essential skills that are needed, or bits of information, important and vital skills that are needed. In your from your experience in your route, what would you say are the essentials, the importance, and the vitals for anyone who wants to get into the industry via?
Well, I think it's like a lot of things. You've got to have a basic knowledge of the equipment that you're using. You know, Excel gets a lot of sort of grief really for being so simple, but it's been used for decades in jobs that are far more important than what we're doing in football. So the basic knowledge of Excel is obviously you're not gonna get away from that. That's a if you don't know that, you know, obviously creating Word documents for opposition reports. You've got everything. I still tend to put everything that I do on a Word document. You know, whether that's sort of, or you know, sort of not orientation views. You know, landscape view as opposed to portrait. You know, so it looks a bit better on a dashboard. Maybe that sort of style. And try and, if you can, learn R or Python or whatever's for you. You know, they're the first two that come to mind for me. I tended to know how to use sports code and huddle stuff like that. But obviously that's not freely available.
Yeah.
That's only if you're in a club environment. So it's difficult. But I think basic computer knowledge and learning how to produce basic graphs and everything else is a prerequisite before you even get to analysing data, you know, and also learn about as many metrics as you can, you know, especially expected goals is massive these days. You know, we're getting more and more into sort of pressure maps and passing sequences, expected threat, you know, all things like this, all these things. So try and learn about that. And it's all freely, just Google everything you can. That's what I did. Everything that I wanted to know about, I Googled until I found it what I wanted, you know, and Google is your friend, basically, I think. But basic computer skills is a start. I mean, I started to create radar charts on Excel for our recruitment stuff, you know, at Crawley. This was when I first started, you know. Now I'm creating them in Python that look a million miles away from what I taught myself to do it. You know, nobody told me how to. I taught myself how to do it, and I think it's perseverance more than anything. But yeah, at least try and learn to maybe code something. Learn how to code in some form.
Yeah, perfect. So obviously the take home message for me, obviously during this conversation is really, you know, if maybe potentially haven't got the opportunity to go to university, don't give up, you know, really try and push and learn your skills, learn your computer skills, your R, your Python, get your work out there via Twitter and put your handle and talk
everywhere.
to people.
Everywhere. I don't bank on, you know, I'm saying it from my point of view, but you don't have to go to university to get a job in football. Let's be clear. You know, everyone, I'm sure there's people who have got degrees in performance analysis who still don't have jobs in football. Like anything in life, you know, you could do a degree in anything and not get the job that you want. So you don't have to. It's all about, I think, as far as I'm concerned, is get yourself in people's faces. You know, send work out. I sent it to every, you know, I went through the whole list of the EFL football clubs, found people, secretaries, even just the simple customer inquiry on an EFL club's website. Just send them, can I send you this? Can you put me in touch with someone that can? Just, you know, bug the hell out of people and just keep going at it. And eventually, if you've got that quality, people, I think, will take you up on that.
Yeah, nice. Well, Gareth, it's been really, really insightful. I'm glad we managed to talk and discuss the different routes, and I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot, certainly coming from someone who hasn't gone that route and learning from yourself. And I think it's been really insightful, and I think a lot of people will take some really good insights from this. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope people have, you know, like I say, without being condescending, I hope people have learned, you know, sort of learned something that gives them that sort of satisfaction. It's not the only route. So I hope I've helped some people. People can feel free to get in touch with me on Twitter or anything. If there's any questions or anything, I'm happy to help people. So just people have helped me, so it's only fair in return.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Gareth. Appreciate it.
All right, Ben. Cheers, mate.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate.